Some people move through life carrying a feeling they can't quite name, a quiet sense that they've landed in a world that doesn't speak their soul's language. They walk among others like guests at a gathering they were never truly invited to. They try to blend in, to speak the common words, follow the customs, wear the masks. Yet deep within, something keeps whispering, this isn't it. This isn't home. It's not sadness, not exactly. Nor is it anxiety or despair, though it may look that way from the outside. It's something subtler, a sacred restlessness, a longing for what can't be described, a homesickness for a place unseen yet deeply remembered by the spirit. And the more awake one becomes, the more illusions dissolve, the heavier it feels, the noise, the pretending, the endless chase for meaning in hollow places. It's a strange kind of ache to feel life's beauty so vividly, yet live in a world that numbs that very sensitivity. This video here in Quantum Aligned is for those who have felt that ache, who've wondered whether their inability to adapt is failure or something far more profound. Because here lies the paradox we must live into. Why is it that the most sensitive, the most conscious, the most spiritually aware among us often feel the most misplaced? Why does clarity come with such cost? And what if that discomfort isn't meant to be silenced, but listened to? This isn't about fixing you. It's not about labels or diagnoses. What you'll find here is a reflection, a way of seeing your inner experience not as weakness, but as wisdom. The unease you carry may not be dysfunction at all. It might be the sacred part of you that refuses to forget truth. The part that knows this world, as loud and dazzling as it is not the final reality. I created this video because so many voices across the world have said the same thing. I feel like I don't belong here. I'm tired of pretending. I don't know how to be myself in this world. Those voices are why Channel Quantum Aligned exists. This space is not about escape, but remembrance. Remembering that your depth, your stillness, your longing are signs of a soul that senses more than the visible. If you've ever felt that too, subscribe. Not for answers, but for resonance. For that quiet relief of knowing someone else sees the same light through the same cracks. You may not feel fixed by the end, but perhaps you'll feel seen. And sometimes that's where healing begins. There's a certain kind of person who looks upon this world and feels a soft dread, not because they are broken, but because they are awake. They notice what others have trained themselves to overlook. The way a day loses its spirit when every moment is scheduled. The way conversations fade into rehearsed smiles. The way even love becomes transaction when no one has time to truly be present. Modern life moves faster than the soul can breathe. We're taught to confuse worth with output, identity with performance, connection with visibility. And when we can't keep up, we're labeled inefficient. When we feel deeply, we're called too sensitive. When we seek solitude, it's mistaken for weakness. But beneath those judgments lies a greater truth. This world was not built for awareness, peace, or depth. It was built for control, speed, and spectacle. And when a heart begins to listen inwardly more than it performs outwardly, this world becomes hard to bear. Spiritual fatigue isn't just emotional exhaustion. It's the erosion of meaning. It's waking up and quietly asking, why does this feel wrong when everyone else calls it normal? It's standing in a crowd and still feeling alone. It's not that you can't function, it's that functioning often demands a level of self-abandonment you can no longer offer. The soul resists what is false. That resistance isn't rebellion, it's remembrance, the memory of harmony, of divine rhythm, of life guided not by fear but by presence. Many have spoken of this as cultural trauma, the wound of living in systems that oppose our deepest nature. We crave stillness but are rewarded for production. We long for truth but are surrounded by simulation. We need belonging, not just fitting in, yet even that word has been twisted to mean imitation instead of authenticity. And so, the soul grows weary, not from failure, but from friction. From the invisible grind of filtering and shrinking itself just to survive. Some carry this weight without knowing it. Others feel it as anxiety, numbness, or disconnection. But these are not signs of brokenness. They are sacred signals. Gentle alarms from within, calling you back to alignment with what is real. You feel it when you scroll endlessly, sensing the emptiness behind the noise. You feel it in achievements that impress others but leave you hollow. You feel it when joy visits, yet guilt shadows it, as though the world scolds you for slowing down to feel. The systems around us rarely question their own worthiness. They demand our participation without earning it. And most comply, not from agreement, but from conditioning, survival teaching us to adapt, even when the soul protests. Yet somewhere inside, a quiet part of you resists. It always has. That resistance is sacred memory, the whisper of the divine reminding you that you were not created to be mechanical. You were made to perceive the sacred pulse beneath all things. You were made to feel the unseen harmony that holds existence together, the rhythm of God's creation moving silently beneath chaos. When you slow down, when you listen deeply, you begin to remember that you were never lost, only distracted. And that is what we seek here together on Channel Quantum Aligned, not escape from the world, but realignment with what the world forgot. So if this message resonates, pause for a moment, breathe, and subscribe, not for content, but for connection. Because you're not alone in this awakening. The longing you feel is not a flaw. It is a compass. It points not to another planet, but to the source that breathes through this one. The world may tell you to toughen up, to move faster, to fit in, but your soul knows better. It remembers a gentler order, a divine stillness beyond the noise. Follow that memory. That's where truth lives. You're not failing to cope. You're simply realizing that coping itself has become a kind of performance. And seeing that may be the first true sign of awakening, the moment your inner sight begins to open. There's a kind of pain that never shows up on medical scans or psychological charts. It doesn't grant you time off or invite comforting words. It moves quietly, through the chest, the nervous system, the silent core of who you are. And no matter how far you run from it, it returns as fatigue, as tension, as a subtle ache that lives beneath the surface of your being. But what if that pain isn't a malfunction? What if it's a message, not to be numbed or suppressed, but to be honored? Many drift through life disconnected from their true selves, numb, distracted, expertly trained to adapt even when adaptation hurts. But for some, the body begins to resist. The mind refuses to settle. The soul starts rejecting what no longer feels aligned with truth. This isn't collapse. It's a sacred remembering, a spiritual immune response. Your inner world pushing back against an outer one that has lost its balance. You start noticing the cracks. You can't fake small talk anymore. You sit in meetings about nothing, and something inside you fractures a little. Crowds drain you. Cities overwhelm you. Conversations that never touch the real feel unbearable. And then comes the judgment. You're too fragile, too emotional, too dramatic. But sensitivity is not weakness, it's perception. It's the art of noticing what others have forgotten how to feel. And perception, when it is not silenced, becomes truth. Philosophers once spoke of this tension, the absurdity of living in a world that preaches freedom yet demands conformity. There's a sickness in that contradiction. But those who feel it most deeply are not the broken ones. They are the ones who still have access to their compass, the inner guidance placed within every soul by the source. Science might label it high sensitivity, dissociation, or sensory overload. Yet beneath all those terms is something older, pure, the refusal of the spirit to flatten itself for a world that worships the artificial. Yes, that resistance can ache. It can look like loneliness, exhaustion, even failure. But hidden within it is wisdom. That ache is not asking to be medicated. It's asking for attention, for silence, for the courage to pause. To admit that perhaps what we've normalized as life has quietly been breaking us. You are not imagining it. This culture is overstimulating. This economy is dehumanizing. This pace is unnatural. And if your body, your heart, or your mind are starting to whisper no, that is not dysfunction. It is divine discernment. So if you feel you can't keep up, if your spirit keeps reaching for the brakes while the world screams go, maybe that's not weakness. Maybe that's the part of you that's still in tune with the sacred rhythm of creation. And perhaps your pain isn't asking to be solved, but to be heard. Some souls enter this world carrying a different frequency. They don't know it at first. They try to belong, to fit, to meet expectations. Yet something inside quietly resists. Not in rebellion, but in subtle pauses, in how they hesitate before answering, in how they feel too deeply in rooms too shallow, and how they look at the sky and ache for something they can't name. These are not the broken ones. They were never meant to blend in, not because they are higher or chosen, but because their role was never conformity. It was remembrance. To feel the dissonance not as punishment, but as proof, a reminder that they carry within them a truth this world has tried to forget. Across many traditions, these souls have been called the seers, the wanderers between worlds. In the language of mystics, they are the homesick hearts, beings who remember, even faintly, the taste of what is real and cannot be satisfied by illusion. In the East, some stories speak of those who return to awaken, not to adapt, to realign what has been lost. But these are not myths. They are reflections of something real within you, the part that never stopped asking why. The part that refuses to numb itself into a life that feels untrue. The part that prefers silence to noise, stillness to spectacle, meaning to motion. That ache of not belonging, that's your honesty. It's the most faithful part of you. You were never meant to perfectly adapt to a system built on distraction. Your discomfort isn't a flaw. It's a compass pointing you inward, back toward the eternal pulse within. It's not guiding you away from the world, but deeper into your true knowing. Maybe the world you were trying so hard to fit into was never whole to begin with. You don't need to call it a mission. You don't have to fix or save anything. What if your very presence, your refusal to settle, your quiet insistence on meaning, your tenderness in a culture that glorifies numbness, is already doing the work? The purpose was never to blend in. It was to stay awake, to keep the flame intact, to live so truthfully that even if no one else understands, you do. And that alone is enough. There is a power that does not shout. It doesn't compete or prove. It simply stands firm and says no. No to the pace that suffocates. No to the expectations that erase the soul. No to the performance of being fine when your inner voice whispers otherwise. This is strength, not the strength of domination, but the strength of alignment. The courage to remember that you were designed by divine intelligence, not by the algorithms of a restless world. Here on Quantum Aligned, we honor that remembrance. We explore the wisdom in your sensitivity, the divine logic in your longing, and the sacred truth that whispers through your pain. If this message resonates, pause for a moment. Let it settle. Then subscribe, not out of habit, but out of harmony, as a gesture of alignment with your own awakening. Because the world doesn't need you to be faster. It needs you to be real. And in that stillness, in that brave refusal to betray what you feel, you become exactly what this age has forgotten. A living reminder of what it means to be human, guided, and profoundly alive. This kind of no is not rebellion. It is remembrance, a return to the sacred pulse within, a gentle refusal to keep treating numbness as the price of belonging. You were never meant to vanish into the noise. You were never meant to offer fragments of your soul just to keep others comfortable. There is another way, one that begins not with a dramatic awakening, but with a quiet vow to stop abandoning yourself just to survive. Often, it starts in the smallest of choices, letting a message wait, stepping away from a draining conversation, giving yourself rest without the weight of guilt. These are not signs of weakness. They are sacred alignments, acts of reclaiming the balance between soul and world. Stillness is not stagnation. Silence is not surrender. Saying no is not failure. It is clarity, the understanding of what your spirit can hold, and the courage to honor that truth without apology. In a culture addicted to more noise, more speed, more doing, choosing to simply be is a quiet revolution. Not an escape from the world, but a transformation of your place within it, slowly, deliberately, from the inside out. You begin to turn away from what drains you. You stop chasing the job that asks you to shrink. You no longer confuse optimization with aliveness. And in the empty space that opens, something pure emerges: presence, sincerity, truth. This is not about transcending pain or seeking enlightenment as an achievement. It is about remaining close to your own experience until it speaks. To hear what your soul has been whispering all along. You are allowed to live a life that nourishes you. You are allowed to rest without proving your worth. You are allowed to be whole even when misunderstood. Saying no does not mean turning against the world. It means refusing to betray the divine within you to keep pace with its illusions. Once you taste that freedom, even in one small area of life, it ripples outward. You breathe deeper. You listen closer. You begin to move not from pressure, but from truth. You may not always change the outer world, but you can choose not to vanish within it. And sometimes that single act of refusal becomes the seed of a new existence, one that feels quantum aligned, balanced between your earthly steps and your eternal nature. Somewhere deep inside you, a quiet part has never stopped noticing. The way the wind shifts before it rains, the ache in someone's silence, the subtle wrongness in a world that tells you to smile while your soul weeps. That part, fragile yet fierce, was never your flaw. It was your compass. It's been the whisper of sanity in a world that forgets what it means to be human. You felt misplaced because you were never meant to be molded. You carry the memory of something truer, older, whole. And even when you couldn't name it, you could feel it, a pull inward, a call home. Maybe you've carried the pain of that difference like a secret. Maybe you tried to silence it, to fix it, to work harder at being what others expected. But what if the very thing that made you feel out of sync was what kept you in rhythm with the real? You don't need to explain anymore. You don't need to twist yourself into shapes that ache. Your awareness is not too much. Your sadness is not failure. Your resistance is not brokenness. They are proof that something in you still recognizes the sacred, still knows when life asks too much of the soul. So if you've been walking through this world feeling strange, tired, misaligned, know this: you are not lost. You are remembering. And that ache you've been carrying, it isn't punishment. It's direction. A divine compass guiding you home. What if the pain that once made you feel like an outsider was the very thread connecting you to truth? If that question lives inside you, if it's been waiting quietly for words, stay close. You're not alone. There are more of us now. Souls awakening to live without pretense. People choosing truth over comfort. Hearts becoming channel quantum aligned, tuned not to noise, but to meaning. More are letting go of the script and listening inward to that still voice that remembers where we came from. And if this message resonated, if it stirred something real inside you, stay with us. Breathe, listen, awaken. Like, subscribe, and keep walking this path of remembrance. You were never lost. You were always on your way home.